Hello everyone, my name is Ross the Alcheminiaturist, and this is another turnip video. With Mariah Carey back in storage, and Santa Claus back on the North Pole, it's time that we turn our attention to the third member of this Noli trilogy, Krampus. Now Krampus is supposed to be this half-goat, half-demon creature that accompanies Santa to visit all of the children of the world, where Santa Claus gives the children gifts if they're good. Krampus punishes them if they've been naughty. I know that I originally said that I was going to do Root Santa, and yes, that will be coming, but I decided to do Krampus first. I took my Beast of Chaos Beast Lord and used it as the base of my Root Krampus. The Beast Lord has, in my opinion, the best pose and arm placement for Krampus, so I wouldn't have to do much in the way of reposing. After clipping all of the parts off of the sprue, I quickly removed all mold lines and got to gluing everything together. I assembled it almost fully, except that I left the original head off as I had a better idea for what I wanted to use to show that this Krampus may have been eating the same things as the rest of the inhabitants of Sist. Mutated foods, as well as something else. I cut off the axe heads and replaced them with Skaven Plague Monk woe staffs, as the original Krampus in mythology has staffs as well. I used both plastic cement and sprue glue because I didn't want to just have one or the other when both together worked marvelously. I then, for the head, used the Rootling from the Turnip 28 Forlorn Hope pack that was originally on Kickstarter. Like I said, I feel like this was a better choice for the head than the original Beast Lord one. We need some mutations on this model, right? After shaving the Rootling down with a knife, I then took superglue and glued it into place. I stole a backpack from the Ogre Maw Tribe's Glutton pack that I seem to have random bits lying around. I honestly don't even know where these bits came from. I don't own any Ogre Maw Tribes apart from some bits. Moving forward from that, I bent a paperclip into some random bends and kinks to make it look like an extra horn, did it again, and then glued both of them into the place behind the Rootling head with more superglue. With the model done, it was time to work on the base. The base, like most bases that I have been doing lately, was made with cork ripped and shaved into a nice shape, before grabbing the Uhu Gluhu and gluhooing it down. I then used superglue to add some barrels from the same Ogre Maw Tribes kit to add a little heft to the base and not just have Krampus standing there all fun and willy-nilly without anything else. I then grabbed my green stuff and put the two parts together and molded it to make a small, oddly shaped sack in the back. As always, I used lotion of the Nivea variety to keep the green stuff from sticking to both myself and the shapers that I used to help shift, smooth, and shape the green stuff into a more passable sack-like look. Just before I was done, I poked a small hole in the top of the bag to simulate an opening to it. I then added some heads from the same Turnip 28 pack to show that Krampus is a little bit more brutal than maybe we previously thought. Plus, I mean, who doesn't love a good random head on a barrel? I know I do. Random heads galore. Once everything was together. I then took more Uhu Gluhu to affix Krampus to his base, as I like the way it acts with models in cork. Bases in cork? Basically anything and cork, I like to use the Gluhu of the Uhu. And then it was time to let it cure overnight before I got to painting. For painting, I started using the AK's black primer and sprayed it over everything. I then grabbed my white primer from AK for the Nahir highlighting that I talked about in my last turnip video, the limb tree. Once the highlighting was done, I grabbed Vallejo's Beastly brown for the skin and ran that through the airbrush as well, as I wanted to make sure that my initial coat was nice and smooth and without as many brush strokes as I could have. Once the airbrushing of the Beastly brown was done, I used some more of the paint that was still in the airbrush hopper and a really cheap brush to do some more closer painting on the flesh of Krampus that I had missed with the airbrush on its initial passover. Once that was done, I used Vallejo's Saddle Brown to paint the barrels. I then grabbed Acryl Sky Blue and used it to paint the loincloth as well as the hats of the actual Turnip 28 sculpted heads to give the impression that the cloth may have come from the same place in Cyst that the heads did. For the rootling head of Krampus, I used Vallejo's Game Air Squid Pink, as it was nice and thin and allowed me to add as much depth as I wanted to with it. Citadel's Leadbeltcher for all of the metal parts on Krampus, as I have yet to find another silvery metallic paint that works as well as that one does. After that, I grabbed Acryl's Bold Titanium White to do all of the horns and all of the bones, including the skull on the torso armor of Krampus. Parasite Brown by Vallejo was diluted and painted over the entire backpack, as I knew that it would not need as much detail as everything else, as it's going to not be any of the focal points, and a lot of grime is coming really soon. I then grabbed Vallejo's Bold White for a couple of bands on the sack, as well as the bands on the barrels, and gave a nice little pass on the bones of the sack as well with it. I then washed the entire model with Agrax Earthshade to give it the beginnings of grime and have a lot more shading to it. I won't get into this part apart from I did a lot of highlighting again, but all of the paints that I used for the highlighting, I added some puffs of Gamer's Grass on both the front and back of Krampus. But as you see, the front didn't want to stay, so only the back remained. And then I just slathered streaking grime on everything. Seriously, nothing was safe from the grime and the streak. Streak and grime everywhere. Once it was done, I made the huge mistake that one could make. I left streaking grime on too long, and it dried before I could take it off. That honestly isn't too terrible of a thing if you think about it, as all you need to do is paint on the mineral spirits and it will reactivate the streaking grime, and you can pull a lot of it off and move it around with Q-tips. And if the Q-tips don't work well right away, you can dip those into the mineral spirits and it will make your life even easier as well. Once the streaking grime was pulled off and moved around, I grabbed Vallejo's Diorama FX, brown mud, to tie it all together with the rest of my turnip models. I let it dry for a day while I went to work, and when I came back, I used Vallejo's Diorama FX Snow to cap off everything. Because, I mean, Krampus does come during the winter, so why not? And there you have it, Root Krampus, ready to go and deal with all of the naughty children of Sist, and maybe even some of the naughty adults as well. As always, if you've gotten to this part, I just want to say thank you for watching this. If you haven't, maybe give a thought to hitting that subscribe button, liking the video, and even leaving a comment. I appreciate it. Until next time, goodbye.